Well, I didn't waste any time getting into Alex's private domain. As soon as the coast was clear, I returned the broom and decided to make my entry. It was a little larger than I thought it would be, but she wasn't really using the full space. Everything was jammed into one small corner of the room. She had set up a workstation and a server rack here. There was a generator powering it all. Presumably she attached it to the other solar-powered generator. Also, there was my phone. It was plugged into the laptop for charging. I decided to leave it to prevent making Alex suspicious, but I was very tempted to take it back. When I hit the space bar on the keyboard, I found she had locked the laptop, so I was going to have to look around for a password. The table had some tools on it and some RAM modules, but nothing that screamed password. On top of the cabinet she had what looked to be some snacks and a thermos of coffee. I guess she was keeping the good stuff for herself. The drawers held some office supplies, some hard drives, flash drives. The desk was pretty clean. She had a variety of sticky notes around reminding her of things to do or addresses for important websites. Several of the stickies had some doodles on it, and I recognized one from when I searched Alex's room. It was that infinity-shaped snake, the one eating its own tail. What was that thing called again? If I recall correctly, Norse mythology would call it Jormungandr, the world serpent. But Alex was an Asian girl. She was not going to use a Norse password. The Chinese dragon was Tiamat, but it wasn't in that shape. Let's see. Oh yes, the Greeks called it Ouroboros. Now when everyone laughed at me in university for taking world mythology as an elective, it actually comes in handy for something. I entered the password and yep, it worked. Now that was a slaver and profiteering symbol, because it's a snake that eats its own tail. So I wonder if it speaks to Alex's nature that she chose that symbol as her password. She didn't have much on the computer. A bunch of portal apps, a web browser. It looked like the computer ran the consoles and acted as an interface for the satellite tech software she stole. I decided to take a look at the most recent file changes, since I figured that would be the most interesting stuff that she's interacting with. Apparently she kept files on each of us girls, and when I opened mine, because of course I'd look at mine first, duh, she had apparently completed my background check. She claimed that because I never worked for a corporate body for longer than 3 months, and had never worked any major contract in the past 5 years, it was obvious I had no political connections worth stealing, and my identity had already been taken. I was living in a poor neighborhood, no family, friends, just a landlord, so I was harmless and I wasn't worth stealing from. Ouch. Well, now I feel like I've wasted my life. Hey lady, at least I'm not a criminal. She didn't have much on Mindy. She had no official documentation, but she was recorded as working with a few employers, and her last employer had a revolving door of missing employees. They hired naive and desperate women, apparently, and they frequently disappeared. She thought Mindy was lucky to have gotten out of there alive. She saw Farah as an Islamic princess who got caught in a scandalous affair with a female European fashion designer. Apparently she fled a arranged marriage, and she was not really painted well in several news articles for it. Her family looked for her for a couple of years, but then eventually declared her dead. Her cousins took over the family business. By the time Alex met her, she was deeply loyal to Karen. Alex had wondered if they were in a relationship, but never saw any romantic moments between them. For Karen, her father gambled away their wealth. They were a fallen family and basically a laughingstock in the UK. There was an article from Karen's youth about her accusing a tutor of raping her, but it got swept under bribes paid to her father. Apparently he monetized it and they lived off that before coming to the island. Did she have a child? Was it child support, or was her father bullshitting a rapist? Was it blackmail? Besides our glowing character profiles, there was also statements and bills and accounts that Alex owned. Apparently she had $15 million, 4 properties worldwide, and she was paying utilities on them. The money was coming in, but not going anywhere, just kind of sitting there. What a waste. So, why is she living here instead of off her riches elsewhere? I also located the project files for the satellite system. Apparently it was just a prototype, so she was stuck bug fixing and tinkering with it. I grabbed one of the flash drives from the drawers and copied some of the files across so that I could use it as evidence. Hopefully Alex wouldn't notice it missing. I think I found all I was going to here, so I relocked the laptop and tried my best to sneak out. But unfortunately Karen caught me. It looks like she was on her way back from feeding Horny. She asked what I was doing in there, and I shrugged since I wasn't supposed to talk, right? She told me my punishment was over and asked again, seriously, what was I doing in there? She didn't buy that I was just looking for my phone. She asked if Alex was telling the truth about me. Was I some sort of deceitful spy out to hurt the girls? I got offended and came clean, told her it was Alex who was deceitful, that I was hired to investigate her, that she was caught stealing, arms dealing, and drug training using the island's resources. Karen told me to be very careful because that was a dangerous accusation. She asked me if I had any proof. So I naturally showed her the files on the laptop, including our unflattering profiles. Karen was silent for a while and said, well, there was no evidence of arms dealing or drug trading here, just exchanges of money. She seemed cold, angry almost. Not at all like the Karen I had come to know. I told her that Alex was using the dockhouse for storing her illegal goods, that I had seen photos of this firsthand. When she asked where these photos were, I told her about Nolan, and she demanded to meet him. I asked if we should include Farah, and Karen said no, let's keep this between us for now. We went to her father's gravesite, and I activated the beacon to call him. While we waited for him to show up, she asked what I would do when this was all over. I said I'd probably go home, not that there was much there. She apologized for Alex. She felt like the women were taking advantage of her crimes, and it didn't sit well for her. She appreciated that I wasn't bullshitting her and was willing to meet her halfway to prove my point. I told her I was sorry to have misled her, but I honestly was trying to understand more of what the women were going through here. I didn't think the other women were guilty. I asked her if she would go back, but she told me there was no place for her in the cities of man anymore. She would stay here with Mindy, Farah, and Horny, given the choice. When Nolan arrived, he was cautious, seeing Karen with me. I introduced them and told him she ran the sanctuary on the island, that she wanted to see proof of Alex's crimes before she would help us. He took out his phone and showed her the photos. Karen looked very disappointed, but she seemed to accept what she was looking at with her own eyes. She apologized again for the troubles Alex had caused. They had no idea they were harboring a criminal. And she didn't want the other women to be dragged into Alex's mess. I gave Nolan the flash drive and the camera, told him there was proof on there that the other ladies were innocent, and that it included the stolen tech files. Karen agreed to bring Alex to Nolan when she returned from her errands. She warned Nolan that he was not allowed in the temple because Horny would attack him. He didn't seem to believe in the existence of a giant monster turtle, even when I tried to explain it to him. But he was a good sport about it and agreed to wait with me. We sat on the stone bench, altar thing, and looked out at the sea, watching the sun move across the sky. I asked Nolan what he was going to do when it was all over. He said he would go back to his investigator business in the city. Apparently we were from the same place. Jokingly called the last district because it was filled with crime, migration, chaos. We were always the last to get service funding and support. I told him great. On the trek back, he could buy me that dinner he owed me for rudely pulling a gun on me on the beach. He laughed and said, fine, one dinner, but he gets to choose the type of venue. But we have to see if this is really over. If Karen tips off Alex and she runs, he won't be going back. Only me. He said he would give her another 15 minutes before he went to encamp the smuggler's dock, waiting for Alex there instead. It took about 10. Karen did return with Alex, proving she wasn't supporting her actions. Nolan didn't draw his weapon when they arrived, but he did tell Alex she was wanted for questioning about crimes in the area. Alex told him to F off. She didn't have to do anything a white man wanted of her. He said it wasn't about being white. The people her crimes were hurting were her own race. I asked why she did it. If she had wealth to live off of and retire, she didn't need to be practicing crimes. She told me it was none of my damn business. I told her it looked like she had gathered wealth just in love of the hunt, that she was making money off of killing people. She said the world was full of people. It wouldn't miss a few. She had the right to survive. They were paying for her services and choosing it. She wasn't forcing anyone to use them. I may have let my mouth run a little bit too far here. I called her a sadist and a psychopath who just enjoys the thrill of the hunt and doesn't give a damn what she does to others. That's why she gathers wealth. She doesn't even need to survive. It was a split second. I didn't even notice what was happening before it was done. Alex took out a blade and it flew right at me. It struck my shoulder and I stumbled backwards in pain and shock. That's when I tripped and fell over the side. It wasn't how I imagined my life was going to end, but I took it with silence and dignity. No regrets. I lived honestly and fighting for what I believed in, the truth. The last thing I saw before hitting the water and blacking out was Karen leaning over the cliff looking terrified. I thought, that kind of reminds me of Farah's painting. In the darkness I heard a voice. You are still needed. Images flashed before my eyes. I saw Nolan staring out a window in his office. A dock at a shipping port. A large white corporate tower. Then I awoke in the halls of the fallen women, in pain. I guess I'm a fallen woman now. Wait, why aren't I dead? Horny came and stood over me. I guess the dope couldn't let me go, I told him it was great he saved me and all, but personal space? And he should probably go find Farah before I bleed out. I passed out again, hearing him roar.